What's going on, everybody? It's Wednesday, October 4th. Got a snap back in the market today. Folks, I don't see anything right now in the fiscal flow data that would kind of indicate that we're in some kind of trouble, although I'll reiterate what I said yesterday, which is that it's still too early to tell. The new fiscal year has just begun. We only have 2 days worth of data. But so far, everything looks kind of the same as it did in fiscal year 2023. But again, I don't want to jump the gun. You got to let this thing at least, a few weeks worth of data. You got to have a few weeks to see really what's going on. There's a lot of this whole thing with the ouster of McCarthy and Getz and his compatriots over there in the House. They're all very fiscally conservative. You hear Getz all the time talking about, the 33 trillion debt and oh my God. I just, as somebody who's been involved in MMT over 20 years now, I have to say, in the last 3-4 years with the amount of attention that MMT has gotten, through people like Stephanie Kelton and Randy Ray, maybe a little bit even myself. I don't know. I don't want to throw myself into that category, but, the books like Kelton's book and all that stuff. And she did a lot of interviews on the business networks. I'm just still, it's frustrating to see this kind of dogma and misinformation just being perpetuated again. Constantly. There has been no inroads into the true understanding of what this 33 trillion is. It's not a debt. That's just, I've been over this like a million times. That's the total amount of dollars issued by the federal government since 1787, minus all the dollars that have been taken away in the form of taxes. So that's 33 trillion that is owned by the non-government, by us collectively, globally. So it's all been paid for, and the fact that it's, there's nothing to pay back. The fact that it's being held in treasury securities, treasuries are just dollar equivalents. The only difference is they have a term and a coupon, meaning they have some duration, a month, 3 months, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 30 years, whatever, and they have a coupon, which means an interest rate, an interest payment attached to it. But the conversion of treasuries back into cash dollars is just like a bookkeeping entry at the Fed. The Fed has 2 sets of accounts. It has reserve accounts and securities accounts. And, it's just the same thing as you taking your checking account and switching your money into your savings account and vice versa. But this constant, talking about this 33 trillion, and I've said this many times in the past, that a bad belief system is like a disease in the body. If you don't eradicate the disease, it can kill off the body. And that's exactly what this thinking is. It's like a disease in the body. And the scary part is that it could result in some kind of crazy policy, a balanced budget amendment or massive spending cuts on the idea that, that's how they're going to deal with the so-called debt. That would be a disaster for most people in the economy. It'll be a disaster for the economy, not for the very, very wealthy and the very connected, but the amount of poverty that it would create, how regressive it is in terms of taking away money, income, support, etc., from basically everyone who's not at the top. We're talking about the middle class all the way down. It would be a terrible, terrible thing. But it's exactly this thinking, it's exactly this mentality which could lead to such a thing. Now, having said that, I want to point out once again that there's really 5 major components to all this spending. I mean, there's a lot more. If you took my course, Understanding the Daily Treasury Statement, and you know how to look at the Daily Treasury Statement, you'll see there's 50 or 60 different line items, maybe more, on that statement, okay? I mean, you got everything in there. You got defense, you got unemployment benefits, you have NASA, you have Social Security, you have interest on Treasury securities, you have, Health and Human Services, you have, all the administrations and everything. You have every line item of spending is on there, okay? But the big 5, and it used to be the big 4, but now with interest payments, it's the big 5. You got Medicare, you've got Social Security, you got Medicare, you got Medicaid, you have defense, and you have interest payments. And 4 out of 5 of those things are non-discretionary. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and interest payments, they just go out. Those are automatic, withdrawals. And we all know that when it comes to defense, that's treated, even though that's a discretionary outlay, Congress always treats that like a non-discretionary item. I mean, whatever the Pentagon asks for, they get it. You need $800 billion a year, boom, you got $800 billion a year. You need another $15 billion for an aircraft carrier, boom, you got another You need $1 trillion for a jet fighter program, boom, you got $1 trillion. Nobody ever asks when it comes to that, where's how are we going to pay for it? For anything else, roads could be falling apart. People don't have health care. They can't get an education. An education will put them in debt for the rest of their life. Stuff like that. We don't have the money for that. We don't have the money for that. Environment going to hell. We don't have the money for that. But you need an aircraft carrier? Oh, boom, here you go. Zelensky needs money? Boom, here you go. So what I'm trying to say is that even though I've been listening to Getz talk about the horrendous debt situation, oh my God, and it's scary because it makes me think, well, they're gonna try to do something about this, and it's gonna tank the economy. When I calm down a little bit, I realize that those 5 things, they're not going to be touched. Okay? They're not going to touch Social Security. They're not going to touch Medicare. They might jigger around with Medicaid. They've done it in the past. You have they've made some cuts in there, but nothing significant. And interest, defense, I just said, they're always going to give the Pentagon whatever it wants. And interest now, because all of these wackos in there in Congress, they all think that China finances us. So they're scared as hell to not pay the interest on the debt because they believe, they got to pay off China. Otherwise, oh my God, China, which is another fallacy, okay? So I don't think, despite all this rhetoric about, fiscal, all this hawkish talk that we're hearing from Getz, I don't think it's going to evolve into anything. I really don't. Because, like I said, those big 5 items, they're just not going to be able to cut those things. Now, I could be wrong. The beauty of this whole thing is we see what they do. I mean, it's not like hidden behind some wall and we don't know what's going on. And even if it was hidden behind some wall in terms of what the policy, we see it in the numbers every day, or we'd see it over time in the daily Treasury statement. So I'm not that worried. It's something that I can monitor. All right? It's like, again, getting back to the analogy of a person's body, of your health. If you have a potential illness, or if you have an illness, which let's say is in its stages that it's kind of benign, but you monitor it, every month, every 3 months, every 6 months, you monitor that illness to make sure, it's not getting worse, that it's stable. Okay, so the same thing here. We can monitor these flows, and we know what's going on. You don't have to try to guess. Like everybody else out there is guessing. which cracks me up. And they're guessing about Fed policy. They're guessing about Fed policy. Just wait until the Fed tells you what it's going to do. People have asked me, Mike, do you think this is the bottom in bonds? Do you think this is the bottom in bonds? I keep saying, like, why even speculate on that? Why try to guess? They're going to tell you when they're done raising interest rates. And until they tell you that, it's not worth trying to pick a bottom. I mean, you might get lucky and get the bottom. I'm not saying no. Just like you might have been lucky and caught the absolute top. But if you just waited until they started raising interest rates in March 2022 and then went short, you think you wouldn't have made money? Of course, you would have made a fortune. Same thing here. You might miss the absolute bottom, but who cares? It's better to know, and they're going to tell you when they're done and when they're going to switch it around. Somebody asked me today in the comments about oil. Oil had like, what, a 4 or 5% drop, and we're down like something like $11 in WTI from the high last month. Okay, we got up to like 95, we're like at 84 something. I kept telling you guys, almost on a weekly basis, if you look at the weekly CFTC Commitments of Traders report, that gives you the positions in the futures markets, and it's broken down into categories. You got commodity producers, you have the swap dealers, which are basically the banks, you have the large speculative funds, and you have small speculators. I kept telling you guys when the market was going up over the last, 4 or 5 weeks, I said, producers have been selling into this rally. Be careful. They're selling into this rally. And, I'm a former trader from the NYMEX. I had a NYMEX membership back in the 80s, and I used to do brokerage business for a major oil company. And you know the saying, like, don't fight the Fed? Well, it applies to these guys too. Don't fight the producers, because they're in this business. They know better than anybody. They got their finger on the pulse of oil supply and demand. They know this business better than any speculative fund and better than you and me. So I don't, it's the same thing I just said with the Fed. I just wait and I watch to see what they do. And I'm not saying that's a perfect timing mechanism. It's not. And they tend to, I remember filling orders for this oil company that I used to do brokerage business for on the NYMEX. And, if the market's going up, they sell. If the market's going down, they buy, kind of in a scale down or a scale up way. So it's like, it's not a timing device where you say, oh, they sold this week, it's going to absolutely drop this week right now. No, but you have to be aware of what they're doing. It's very, very important. Now, let me say this. If we start to see now that they come back in on the buy side after this dip, and I'll tell you guys, I'll let you guys know, that's your signal. Now, I suspect that they will. I don't think the oil market is necessarily that bearish. I mean, today we had the EIA weekly petroleum status report, and there was some things in there that it looked pretty soft, like domestic demand, gasoline demand, distillate demand. We had a big increase in gasoline inventories. Okay, gasoline inventories are up almost 10% over last year. That's big. That's big. All right, the gas prices are going to come down some more. I mean, they've been falling. They're going to come down some more. So if we see the producers come back in now on the buy side, it may not be the week to buy, but you want to do what they're doing. Like, as it comes down, you want to be buying. The banks too. Okay? So yeah, that's the explanation for what's going on in oil. I don't, if I step back and I look at the macro picture, especially with OPEC production cuts, especially with the economy relatively strong, I don't see like a bearish scenario. But this pullback, I mean, it was in the cards. I mean, all you had to do was, and I was saying to you guys, be careful. Producers are selling. And I know, even if I wasn't saying it here on these videos, which I'm pretty sure I did mention it, I usually talk about that like at least once a week when that EIA report comes out. But let me tell you, all of my subscribers knew about this. It was in the report. It was in emails that I sent out. That's why you got to sign up for the report, MMT Trader. Anyway, that's it. Beautiful day here in Southern California, about 86, 87 degrees. Tomorrow's going to be 90, man. My kind of weather. Anyway, that's it for today, folks. Hope you're having a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.